Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today's lighting might be a little bit off. I don't have time to set up my full lighting rig today, but I wanted to make sure I got this video up. Luckily the AC is off, so there won't be any weird audio issues this time. But if the lighting seems a little less professional, not that I'm ever professional, than normal, that's why. I just don't have enough time to set up my full lighting rig today, which is something I try to never ever do, but I'm really on a time crunch, and this is the only time that I can get this video filmed to make sure that this video goes up when it is supposed to. But earlier today, I finished What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Again, I usually also like to wait a solid 24 hours before doing book reviews, but I just finished the last like 30 pages this morning. I read the most of it the day before, and I kind of feel the same way that I did yesterday. And I have some thoughts on this book. For those of you guys who do not know, this was one of my most anticipated reads of 2022. I really like T. Kingfisher's work. I really like her kind of niche of horror, where she likes to take famous Gothic short stories and turn them into novels. So I'm going to read the inside flap of this book quickly, and then we will go into what this book is all about and how I feel on it. Oh, and before I do it, I have to say, this book is beautiful. Like, the inside artwork, like, if you can see that, is just absolutely stunning. The attention to detail in this book I thought was beautiful from, like, a packaging perspective. I really, really love that. When you take this front cover off, you get this really nice, like, creepy haunted house, obviously the House of Usher. But I just thought that that was amazing, and I really want to just say, I think this was Tor, yeah, this was Nightfire. Like, Nightfire did an amazing job on the packaging on this book. So, let's read the inside flap. When Alex Easton, a retired soldier, receives word that their childhood friend Madeline Usher is dying, they race to the ancestral home of the Ushers in the remote countryside of Ruritania. What they find there is a nightmare of fungal growths and possessed wildlife, surrounding a dark, pulsing lake. Madeline sleepwalks and speaks in strange voices at night, and her brother Roderick is consumed by a mysterious malady of the nerves. Aided by a redoubtable British mycologist and a baffled American doctor, Alex must unravel the secret of the House of Usher before it consumes them all. So I was going to come out and say this because I know a lot of people really, really loved this book. I was not a fan. I was not a fan for, I think, the expectations that I have set for T. Kingfisher not being met this time. There's a couple things that I felt I was promised by the idea of T. Kingfisher doing Edgar Allan Poe that I didn't get after just reading the synopsis of the book. So what this comes down to is, so I haven't read The White People by Machen, which is what The Twisted Ones is based off of, but I have read the Willows by Algernon Blackwood, which is what The Hollow Places is based off of. And I loved how T. Kingfisher took a story that I believe was written either the late 1800s or the early 1900s and put it into modern times, and then made it this kind of weird, truly modern cosmic horror moment, and added just so much to the original story, and really made it her own. I don't think she achieved that with What Moves the Dead. I felt that What Moves the Dead, and I did see this on a couple of reviews, and I have to say that I believe that they are 100% right. What Moves the Dead is the fall of the House of Usher mixed with Bunnicula, mixed with Mexican Gothic. And I think the fact that Mexican Gothic only came out 2 years ago and has such a similar final act as this, and even T. Kingfisher admits that she was scared to release this because she claims to have written it before Mexican Gothic was released, and then was like freaked out after reading Mexican Gothic, being like, wow, it's kind of the same thing. And it really is. It really, really, really is. And unfortunately, I think Mexican Gothic did it better. So I definitely had that against it. Another thing is, because the book was set in like the 1890s, I really felt like it was just a copy and paste of The Fall of the House of Usher, which I believe is set in like the 1830s maybe. And I felt like this book would have benefited so much more being set in modern times. One of the things that T. Kingfisher tried to do is kind of take the really contemporary concept of personal pronouns that we have with a character who identifies as what we today would call a they, them, and kind of created this really intricate backstory for how somebody in the 1890s could be a they, them, have that origin, accepted in society, feel at ease with that, and just kind of make it make sense in that time period, if that makes sense. However, I felt that it just overcomplicated a very, very short novel. Not that it's bad to have that. I actually thought it was going to be really cool to have, because I've never read a novel so far with a they, them, Megan character, and I thought that was going to be really, really cool. But then introducing the entire backstory of the history of the soldiers of Galatia was just really complicated, and I think it had me asking more questions than just accepting what was going on. And I think the fact that T. Kingfisher introduced not just a concept of a they, them pronoun with the ka-kan pronouns, but also child pronouns, the va-van, that was almost too similar for me. And then when you get to this one scene where they are talking about this kind of inanimate object and they use the va-van pronouns, I was just even more confused, because at the very beginning of the book she mentions how they have pronouns for inanimate objects as well. And I was like, well, why wouldn't we just use that? And then I thought it was strange that, like, sometimes Alex would be referred to as sir, even though we knew that they didn't identify as a man. So I don't know. It really confused me. And I really felt like that backstory, if we had just completely removed it, set it in modern times, and said Alex Easton is they, them, I would have just been like, great. Because all of the detail and backstory that was added about the Galatian soldiers really was just to justify why there's a character with they, them pronouns, and didn't add anything else to the story. It really didn't flesh out who Alex was as a character, gave no real purpose beyond just explaining that, and it just took up so much time. And I just feel like a lot of this story could have been told in modern times. It could have just been a remote house without cell service, and we would have had the same kind of strange isolation, you know. And I just felt like I really wanted it to be modern, because we all know The Fall of the House of Usher as this kind of 1800s classic gothic tale, and T. Kingfisher does such a good job with modernizing old school short horror stories, and that's what I was expecting with this, and I just didn't get it. And then for being a novel that was only 150 pages, it just felt really long at times, because I felt like T. Kingfisher had this strange style that I've never really seen with her, where Alex just kept having these asides, all of these thoughts that would just come up and add more detail to the scenario, or like what they were thinking or how they were responding to certain things in parentheses, that really added nothing to the story, or it became this whole moment of tell instead of show, where T. Kingfisher would tell you what was happening or what Alex was thinking, and then immediately show it right afterwards. And I didn't expect that from T. Kingfisher, because I do usually think that she's a very good writer at putting imagery together and emotions and fear and horror. And to me, it just felt flat. Like, this really felt like a draft that just hadn't had any of the asides or emotions that T. Kingfisher wrote. Like, make sure that you project this into the narrative, but she just kept those parentheses there, if that makes sense. So I just had difficulty with that aspect of this novel. And again, I love The Fall of the House of Usher. It's a very famous story from Poe. It's a story I've read many, many, many times. And I do understand that Poe does talk a lot about fungus and mushrooms in that story. But I think T. Kingfisher just expanded upon what was already there without actually adding a new spin to the story. I feel like we really could have done something. And I felt like a lot of the things that I really thought made The Fall of the House of Usher so unique and so terrifying, especially with like the ancestral family line of the Ushers, was just absent in this. And then it was replaced with stuff that wasn't as scary. You know, mutant bunny rabbits or hares, whatever they are, to me isn't as disturbing as what the heavy implications of Madeline and Roderick's relationship is in the original text. So I felt like there's definitely some body horror in this that I thought was really creepy. Like there's a dissection scene in this, which I did think was very, very creepy. But a lot of people were billing this book as like really disturbing and terrifying. And the whole time I'm reading it, I was just like, this is just the fall of the House of Usher, but like rated G. You know, like it just wasn't as scary as the original. And it didn't add anything really new to the original. It added a bunch of new characters, to be perfectly honest. But the book was so short that none of them ever got like fleshed out. Like they all felt very, very one-dimensional. So I didn't care about any of them. And I really don't like when we have a protagonist who is just perfect. And Alex Easton is just this perfect, loyal, superhuman kind of persona, right? Like it's very Clark Kent, where you can do no wrong, and you want a Bruce Wayne, a flawed, tormented person with demons in these kind of stories to keep you interested, whereas we have Alex, who really is just a great stand-up, honorable person with just no flaws. And I just didn't find that intriguing. And then we have a bunch of other characters who really don't have any flaws at all. Like Roderick Usher in the original is a very strange character, you know, and there are some personal demons in his past that kind of get fleshed out. None of that happens here. They're all really great people who've been put in these like really weird, strange situations. I thought the bashing on Americans and British was strange. Again, had it been set in today's time period, I think it would have made a little more sense, talking about like the political affiliations of the one British character and the one American character, but being set in like the 1890s, it was just kind of weird and jarring. And they're like making fun of like a Civil War medic for like his Americanness. And it just felt really tasteless, because this character is talking about like the horrors that he saw in battle and like how he became like a medic in wartime. And then they're just like, oh, but he used this American phrase, like silly American. And you're like, no, Denton's like a very like serious character, and we're kind of just making fun of him for being American. So, I mean, I didn't find it like offensive or anything. I just found it really jarring. Like, of all the people to make fun of a war veteran medic, it's kind of like, why are we making that person the butt of all the jokes? So I don't know, I just found it very strange, and I really expect more from T. Kingfisher, especially because I really, really loved the uniqueness and creativity of the Hollow Places, and I was really looking forward to seeing that in What Moves the Dead, and I just didn't. It just felt like a copy and paste student reimagining of The Fall of the House of Usher without a lot of the crucial things that make that story so terrifying. And one of my favorite things in The Fall of the House of Usher is how the house mimics the family line. You know, and you have the whole story about the crack that's going up the house, and it's the dividing and crumbling of the family line of Usher, and just all of that was so absent in this, and I just didn't feel like it needed to be. And I really wish that it had been set in modern times. Again, I keep saying that because I just feel like T. Kingfisher could have done so much more with her concept, and she really wanted to bank on mycology, I think that's the proper term, like the study of fungus. And I feel like had it been set in modern times, we could have done something really cool, because we have enough scientific knowledge nowadays to really trace that and evolve that to something really cool and almost cosmic, perhaps, because she really didn't want to go like the ghost route that I feel like is what Fall of the House of Usher is, and really wanted to go the scientific route. And I think that could have been an interesting thing, but again, that did not happen. So this was a 3-star read for me. I do appreciate the writing and the ideas behind it. I just feel like there was a place for it to have been more original and more unique, and just feel less like a copy and paste. And I do really commend T. Kingfisher on making a protagonist a they-them character, and I loved how she really dove into like the psyche of Alex, just being like, well, yeah, that's like who I am. When I discovered that that was something that existed, that is what I adopted. I really, really loved and appreciated that. I just really felt that it was a modern context that would have done so much more for the book had it been set in modern times, and we didn't need to waste so many pages with this weird fictional history that just went on and on and on and on and on about the soldiers of Galatia that just never came back into play in the book. Like, it was so, well, it was like 20 pages, I feel like. That might be an exaggeration, but it was a lot of information, and it just didn't really go anywhere. So I just kind of wish that, I just wish it had been in modern times. I feel like it would have had a more powerful in-your-face message. But that is just me. Anyway, 3 stars. I will definitely see what T. Kingfisher has next. This hasn't put me off reading her or anything. I just feel like she's done better and could have done better. And that's kind of where my disappointment falls with this. So, but again, do love the cover. Love the general ideas that were there. It just didn't stick the landing for me. Anyways, that is all that I have for you guys today. As always, I post every Monday and Thursday, sometimes on Saturdays. And if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, and I will catch you all in the next one. Mwah.